Downtown, I got that heat, let's go.
Damn. What is going on, good people? It is good to have you here for this edition of the SMT Media Network NBA pod. In this podcast today, we discuss some things that have been on my mind, and I'm sure some of you guys have some opinions on some of these things. We've been having some excellent engagement on the last couple of streams. I'm really happy about the direction that the channel is going. Man, I can't thank you guys enough for all that you do. Whether it's your viewership, your engagement with the channel with respect to comments on the videos, calling in, tapping in, checking in with me, seeing how things are going, giving me your thoughts and opinions on air. I do give you all grand salute. Thank you all for your continued support as I make content and navigate the waters of NBA history, modern NBA, all things happening with the association. It's going to be a great season. It was just the season completed that was amazing and fantastic. The NBA has a rich history. I like to cover all these things on my NBA podcast. I always do. Any topic, right, that involves the association. The legacy stuff, right, the legacy players, the greats of their eras. We celebrate those. We celebrate the modern players. But I do think that there's a bit of a disconnect. Some things have hit the fan, if you will. And actually, let me check my audio. Let me make sure that we're good here before I proceed with the show. I just got to double check and make sure that we are solid. Let me cut my music first, and then let me listen. And Micah, if you're listening on headphones, let me know if you hear any static or any feedback or anything. All right, I just listened on my end. It seems okay. Hopefully, it's good on your end. If anything comes up, you guys hear anything and it impacts the audio quality of this, let me know. All right. So, thanks, Mike. I appreciate you. Yeah, I salute you, man. Thank you. Um, so what are we doing with tonight's show? Well, I was supposed to have a guest. I emailed him the link, let him know that we were going to start the show at, around 8:30 or whatever. And he hasn't shown up yet. He may show up. He may. We'll see if that happens. If he doesn't matter. The show must go on. I was invited him onto my platform so that way we can kind of get some alternative perspectives on the association. He's got a really unique way of viewing the great players that people tend to rank, and he's got an interesting perspective on fans of certain players and stuff like that. So I was going to bring him on and kind of give him the opportunity to kind of give his perspective on all those things. And obviously, you don't want, at least I don't want my channel turning into an echo chamber. There are people who have YouTube channels that want to and have created echo chambers. I don't want to be that type of channel. I don't. I have different perspectives than a lot of people. The folks here on my YouTube channel that watch my videos and comment and engage with us on the streams, they see things differently than I do. And I extend that opportunity for them to kind of voice it, speak it, explain it, give reasons. May or may not agree with all things. You may not agree with many things. But I think it's a really important thing to get alternative perspective. I do not want my channel turning into an echo chamber. Absolutely not. In fact, when I first started doing live streams and doing the content for this channel, that was what I was trying to do with it. I wanted to make it an engagement channel. I didn't want it to just be me passively creating content. I mean, I obviously wanted to give my opinion. At least in my life, I don't have that many people who are into hoops as much as I am, as much as I was into the NBA when I was a kid and those kind of things. So this is kind of an outlet. It's a way for me to kind of geek out on the association and talk about my favorite players of all time and doing film breakdowns and film studies and analysis of games and discussing the great players of before and today. And, and that's what I've always wanted the channel to become. Papa. What's up, cute stuff? My visitor. And we got a little visitor today. You just crashed my live stream? Yeah. Look, you're on camera. See? You see? Yeah. Say hi, everybody. Hi. Gonna hang out with me for the whole show, or do you want to go back upstairs? No. What's this, pictures? Is that pictures with Mino? Yeah. Yay. Happy day, Dad. Yay. We love Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah. That's very nice. You gonna put those in your room? Yeah. That's nice. Hey, can you take this little one upstairs? I gotta do my pod. I was just about to put my iPad in here. Nope. Close the door, please. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate you. Yeah, man. You gotta crash the live streams. All right. Let's see. What do we got going on here? Uh-oh. All right. So we'll see if my guest shows up. We'll see. He proclaims that he is the number one most influential amateur NBA page on YouTube. He claims you will learn more from the NBA legends on this page than any other NBA page on YouTube. His page, according to him, has been featured on ESPN, Fox Sports, TNT, and many other places in the media. Many popular NBA pages on YouTube learn things from this page. So if he comes on, it'll be a good one. We'll see. We shall see. And of course, as I discuss today's topics, I'm going to share the link. You guys can jump in, give me your thoughts and opinions on things as we discuss them. All right, let's start first with players that I believe are underrated and underappreciated. And this could be across any era. These can be modern players, these can be legacy players. It really doesn't matter. I've got some modern ones and I've got some legacy ones too. And some of the guys I'm going to mention, some of the players that I personally have on my list of underappreciated players. Thank you. I got it. Thank you. I got it. Yeah. Some of the guys I have as my underappreciated players are not going to be underappreciated by all, but I think are often overlooked in conversations about great players. So if they go overlooked and they're not a part of the conversation on a regular basis, I'm here to boost them. I'm here to bring them up, elevate them, because I don't think they get enough run in those conversations. Like, there's certain players who are better than what people give them credit for. There's certain players who weren't celebrated much after they retired, weren't even really celebrated that much when they played. Obviously, those guys will stick out the most. But like, take for example Alonzo Mourning, right? I'm just going to use him as an example. Alonzo Mourning is a fantastic player. He's great by a lot of different measures and metrics and all those things. But nobody ever brings him up, and nobody ever discusses him openly about the best centers of all time. Like, if you made a list of the top 50 centers that ever played in the NBA, like, does he not deserve considerations for a top 50 ranking? Does he deserve top 40 ranking, top 30 ranking? I think he belongs in those conversations. And when you think about the great centers that have played in the NBA, I mean, there are some amazing ones. So it's hard to crack a top 10 centers list, because you look around the league and what's happened, and the top centers of the league, they're also the top centers of all time, right? So I'm going to just, that was an example. Here are some players that I found. This is just an image that I found on Google. Give credit to FW, whoever the hell that is. These are some players who I agree with are underappreciated, underrated, overlooked in conversations about good players. And it just so happens that some of these guys played in the 1990s. Some of these guys played in, an era that people say we done with the 90s. But the 90s had great players, just like the 80s had great players. And you know what? There's probably a lot of 80s players that get overlooked too. And I wrote down, some of those players, just as honorable mentions. They belong in this list. There's players from the 2000s. There's players from today. One of the players I wanted to bring up today from the modern NBA is Darius Garland. Right? We can have that conversation. He's underappreciated. He's underrated. Like, this dude is fantastic. He's a wizard. Nobody talks about him. People would rather talk about Dame Lillard with his torn Achilles than talk about Darius Garland in the season he just had and the career he's starting to compile. I'm just naming a couple of names. Here's some other guys. These are just some from like my childhood who I remember very well and I watched very closely, who were really good, probably underrated. Yeah, Woodage, that's a good one. Bob Pettit's another one who's very underrated, but that goes back, right? Atlanta Hawks, Bob Pettit. You're talking about pre-NBA, and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure he's well before the formation of the NBA, and the ABA merger, I should say, right? Because that's when, and some people say that's like when you can actually count the NBA as the NBA, because it merged to all the talent that was within the two leagues, right? And it kind of makes sense, but it's just a nuance, I suppose. Here are some guys that I think are underrated, and not all these guys were on my original list, but I found the image. All right. Let's see here. All right. Kevin Johnson, a fantastic guard, point guard of the Phoenix Suns in the 90s. He was a part of that run with Charles Barkley and Dan Marley that played the Chicago Bulls in the early 90s. They were a really, really good team. They had really good players. They were fantastic. Yeah, Kevin Johnson was fantastic, like super athletic, a pretty good shooter, a competent passer. He's not going to be one of those prolific passers, with like the gaudy assist numbers like John Stockton, but he was the total package, and he was a worthy consideration of being underappreciated and under-recognized. Mitch Richmond was one of the best shooting guards I ever saw play. So he's definitely worthy of that consideration. Dude was a bucket, and a pretty good defender. I don't remember him getting cooked or anything. He was competent defensively for sure. Terry Porter was a really good point guard. Remember, he was a part of that run with the Portland Trailblazers versus the Chicago Bulls with Clyde Drexler, Kevin Duckworth, and those guys, and Cliff Robinson. It was a nice team. Dan Marley, part of that Phoenix Suns team. Good defender, a sharp shooting three-point shooter. He was really good player. Rod Strickland, man, one of my favorite players of all time, a guard that gets overlooked in the conversations about, a bag and handles and stuff. He was fantastic, super fast, lightning quick. Another player that's underrated, Mark Price. I agree with this one 100%. This guy shot like 90% from free throw like every year of his career. I don't know. Maybe there was one year he shot like 89% or something. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but that dude was an amazing shooter. And he was the epitome of a traditional point guard, right? Running the team's offense, locking up the other team's point guard, right? The defense. Assist numbers were there. His shooting numbers were there. I mean, he probably could have averaged 25 a game in today's NBA. Probably. If they were giving him the green light to shoot 8, 9, 10 threes, he may have had a season where he probably scored 28 a game, right? Because of the prolific three-point shooting. He was a marksman. I'm going to have to go back and look at his stats, but like I bet you there's multiple seasons where he was 40% or better from the three. Again, they just didn't do the volume back then. Coaches didn't promote that. Analytics were not king, that sort of stuff, Mookie Bilak was an all-star caliber 90s point guard. He was fantastic. He used to give other teams problems quite a bit, especially defensively. He was really good. Glenn Rice was a bucket. Glenn Rice was a prototypical, that's how you build it type of NBA player. Detlef Schrempf is always overlooked in conversations. Maybe it's just because he's unassuming. But I want to say a small forward. He was an all-star. He was, part of a really good team that had Gary Payton, had, Sean Kemp and those guys, and they had a couple nice runs. Vin Baker was a bucket, man. That guy was so good. Really, really skilled player. These guys, when they talk about we done with the 90s and they make fun of legacy players and they say they're bums and all this other stuff, there's not a single bum in any of these players. None of them. These guys had game that would translate into any era. So when they talk about, players, how would they translate in an era? Great players are great players. It doesn't matter the era. They'd be adjusted. They would be complete. They would be skillful. They'd be terrorizing the league as they did in their own era. Like what? You give Mark Price 10 threes a game. What do you think he's going to do? He's going to make 4 or 5 a night. You know what I mean? He's going to make 90% free throw. He's going to average 9, 10 assists a game. What do you think Kevin Johnson would be right now? Russell Westbrook. What Russell Westbrook was, but maybe with a slightly better, like, more control, Rod Strickland, I like Kyrie Irving, like with the quickness, Thunder Dan, we've always had guys in the league who were 3 and D. He was the definition of that. These guys were good, Vin Baker was at his best in Milwaukee, went downhill during that. Man, he was a beast in Milwaukee. And I remember the Glenn Robinson era. Actually, shout out to Glenn Robinson. Yo, big dog Glenn Robinson, criminally overlooked when discussing the best forwards of the eras. This guy was a perennial all-star. This guy he had all NBA type talent. There's just a lot of good players in the league, and you can only select so many for these awards and distinctions. I'm going to just name off some of the great players that are, in my opinion, overlooked and underappreciated. First of all, Isaiah Thomas, the real one, Zeke, Piston Zeke. This guy is never in the discussions of the all-time greats. How the hell this happens, I have no idea. It's crazy to me. Dude is a champion. Dude is a across 2-decade all-star. If it wasn't for Jordan, this dude would have been on the dream team, with all those other great guys. He took championships. He beat the Celtics. He beat the Lakers. He beat the Bulls. Well, him and the Pistons, right? I don't want to give credit to one guy. That's ridiculous. And he did it all, and he played hurt, and he was a warrior, and all the things we talk about. Like, he had everything. Always overlooked. Everybody wants to talk about Steph. Everybody wants to talk about Magic, and rightfully so. They're great players. But how are we going to overlook Zeke? How? Like, people ask me, like, who are your favorite point guards of all time? I start with Zeke. If my kid says to me, I want to learn how to play basketball, give me a player. I'm going to play point guard. Who should I study? Who should I watch? Isaiah Thomas. We could start the conversation there. I'm not going to tell my kid to watch Magic Johnson because chances are my kid's not going to be the size of a forward trying to play point guard. Zeke is a point guard's point guard, right? And he actually had a little bit of shooting guard scoring edge to him, right, when he had to be, right? Criminally overlooked in the conversations about the top point guard of all time, right? Let's see, what else? Chris Jackson, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. He was kind of like the first, like, original Steph Curry. People talk about Steph and how he changed the game. There was a guy doing those things already. Nobody talks about Chris Jackson, Mahmoud Abdul-Rauf. Mo Williams is overlooked all the time. This guy was a really, really good basketball player. Nobody discusses him. Larry Hughes is another one. Nobody wants to talk about Larry Hughes. Stockton gets overlooked. Yes, Woodage, which is crazy because the dude was all NBA across all levels across 2 decades. He literally played through the 90s, right? I think he was drafted in the 80s. I think he played into the early 2000s. Dude played across a huge span of years, and he was elite the whole way. Mark Jackson gets overlooked. Floor general, played the game right, super high basketball IQ. Oh my God, Micah, I literally in my forwards, I have Anton Jameson. Plays both sides of the ball, very smart, excellent shooter. He's just overlooked for the era, right? Because they're going to talk about how great LeBron was in the 2000s, right? They don't want to talk about, like, people overlook Paul Pierce. Why the hell wouldn't they overlook Anton Jameson? Anthony Mason Woodage was a great player, really fierce defender, super tough, hard-nosed guy, serious business, strong as an ox, and had a nice game, had a nice complete game. Good passer. Lefty, came out kind of awkward kind of deal. I would say the athletic version of Zebo. You know what I mean? He was a fantastic player. I'm just naming some more guards. Everybody talks about Ray Allen's three-point shooting. That dude had a complete game. Like, go back and watch the Sonics years. Forget the Miami Heat years. Forget the Celtics years. Go back and watch Milwaukee Bucks, Ray Allen. Go back and watch Seattle Supersonics, Ray Allen. You see game-winning shots. You see handles. You see dunks. This guy was in the dunk contest. People don't think about these things. They forget about them, right? Andre Miller, nice with the pill. Complete game. Defense, offense, multi-dimensional. Had a good shot, smart with the ball, basketball IQ through the roof, overlooked all the time. Muggsy Bogues, like the smallest player, I think, to ever play in the league, started for the Charlotte Hornets for years. Defending Michael Jordan, you'll find the footage. Being a pest, fighting, right? This dude was super athletic, strong. All the things you need to be a great NBA player, he had them in like that 5'3" frame. Manu Ginobili. People forget how good he was. I mean, they know he played on a great team and they know he was great, but the dude gave up part of his game for the sake of coming off the bench so his team could be greater, and that's overlooked. He could have, guys, there are seriously people who say he was an MVP type player if he was a starter, but he came off the bench for a large majority of his career. Joe Dumars, right? Lockdown defense, sharp shooter, fierce competitor, had the total package at the shooting guard position next to Zeke. There's a reason why they won chips. There's a reason why they gave the Bulls problems, and the Celtics, and the Lakers, and the Cavs. Clyde Drexler. I want to say this about Clyde Drexler. If it wasn't for Michael Jordan, this guy was the most impressive player in the NBA in that era, right? I'd say like him, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, Clyde Drexler too. You know, people forget like when you go back and watch the footage on Clyde, smooth, complete game, prototypical size. You know, the skill set was complete. Clyde, it's just MJ was there and the Bulls were there, you know, and he finally got his chip in Houston with Hakeem, you know, and that was good because obviously, you know, the Houston years and stuff like that. College. Mo Cheeks overlooked quite a bit. I'm getting to the forwards, Woodage. I'm getting there. Alex English, criminally overlooked. You know, there's kids who don't know who Alex English is. One of the problems with the younger kids, like the generation that likes to talk a lot on TikTok about hoops and celebrate the modern NBA but shit on the legacy players, they don't go back and watch film. You show them film on Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, they're like, holy shit, who is this guy? Like, who's this player? Yeah, there were guys like that back in the day. You know, you show them footage of like Oscar Robertson, they start laughing. They're like, oh, it's, you know, 240p. But like that was one of the most well-rounded players anybody's ever seen. You know, Bernard King, another dynamic scorer. Washington Bullets, way before they were the Wizards, overlooked quite a bit. He was a dynamic scorer, one of the best the league ever saw. From the forwards, David West. I talked about Glenn Robinson earlier. How about Hito Turkoglu? Right? You want to talk about the Michael Jordan of Turkey, Adrian Dantley. Yes, sir. Woodage, absolutely. Right? Larry Johnson, a dominant player in his era. Dominant. Grandmama. You guys remember all that. Chris Webber, you know, couldn't get a championship, so now everybody thinks he's a bum, which is crazy. They forget who he was drafted with, right? So he's overshadowed by some of those things. Rashard Lewis was a great player. Tayshaun Prince, great forwards that were overlooked. Rasheed Wallace. People don't know how good Sheed was, man. As crazy as it sounds, Sheed had the whole game. He was a competent passer. He had a good handle on the ball. His post game was phenomenal. Nice post game. A fierce defender. Detroit, 2004. What he was in Portland, right before he, you know, the Boston years and the Pistons years. It was nice, bro. You know, Kevin Garnett is obviously one of the best bigs to ever play in the league. Power forward, center, whatever. I don't know. Sometimes guys play certain positions at certain parts of their career or whatever, but to me, he was always a power forward. Dude was a league MVP. He was a champion. He was an all NBA defender for years. One of the most fierce competitors, you know. Tom Gugliotta. I remember Googs. But they don't give him his respect. They don't talk about him as the elite bigs. He's always overlooked. They just put everybody else and they forget to throw him in there. Gerald Wallace. People remember Crash. He had a good run. Sean Marion. Right? This dude has all NBA. I know it's like third team or whatever, but Dominique Wilkins. Somebody brought it up earlier. I forget who it was. Dude was amazing. I saw him give Jordan like 50. I'm not even joking. Dude was a high flyer, but dude's game was complete. That is not an exaggeration. Neek was nice, bro. And then from like the center position, Yao Ming, if it wasn't for the injuries, would have gone down as like a top center of all time. He was super skilled. He was an unstoppable force when he was healthy, right? The injuries really sapped him. Bruiser says KG was a fake tough guy, but the game is undeniable, Bruiser Sue. The game was undeniable. The big ticket, league MVP, champion, all NBA defense, elite. All right. Neek was a notch below Bird, Magic, Isaiah Jordan. Now, but how great is a notch below those guys? Right? Like you're naming players that people put in their top 10 and top 20 all time. So that means Neek is like right there. See what I mean? I hear you, bro. I hear you, bro. I'm just talking about the players that kind of go underappreciated or undermentioned, I suppose. Zadrunas Ilgauskas. I put him up there kind of like with that Yao Ming injury thing, right? Big Z was really good defensively, had a really nice post game, had good footwork, even though his feet were busted. This dude had experimental foot procedures like several times to try to just squeeze a few years out of his career. Dude, Z was hitting corner threes before that shit was cool. Before the coaches started drawing it up. Z had range. And this is one of the reasons why I don't like it when LeBron shits on his former teammates and LeBron fanatics shit on his former teammates. The dude was a G. Big Z was him, bro. Sean Kemp, another great player. We know about the finals run against the Bulls, right? He was an amazingly talented, immensely athletic big for the era. And he was just flying all over the place. Him and Gary Payton were a pretty amazing tandem. Vlade Divac. Who am I forgetting? Sabonis. Right? You guys know about his son who plays today, but you know, his dad was a really good player, Arvydas Sabonis. You know, you brought up an interesting point earlier, Micah. You mentioned Bill Russell being underrated. That's by the modern fans. They're the ones that underrate Bill Russell. You ask anybody who cares about winning, prioritizes defense, leadership, dominance, they always mention Bill Russell. There's some older diehards that still to this day say Bill Russell is the greatest NBA player of all time. They stand by that, right? Man, Kevin Willis was a goon, bro. Was a beast, skilled, powerful, good athlete, smart, made good decisions. The Davis brothers, they were good players too. Supplemental roles, right? They were really good. Bruiser Sue says King James, the Alpha, the Omega, but you wouldn't say he's underrated or underappreciated. A lot of people put him as the best player of all time, so I wouldn't go that far. Josh Smith was a nice player. Josh Smith was an interesting story, though. I feel like he underachieved. Maybe it was because he played for Atlanta and they never really got out of the first round of the playoffs or whatever. But yeah, he was nice. He was a good player. Lefty. I remember smooth lefty. Nice player. Had good range, stuff like that. Yeah, Mike, I'm telling you, some people just don't do it because of his timing. They're like, oh, there were 8 teams in the NBA. They come up with these crazy things. But like, you mean to tell me that Bill Russell wouldn't have been great across any era? The dude had it all, what it took to be a winner. He had every quality and characteristic. You know what I mean? Stephon Marbury was nice. Yeah, he was definitely nice. I mentioned Alonzo Mourning earlier. Moses Malone, my goodness, comes up in no conversations except brothers like Too Raw for TV. He will bring up Moses Malone. Guys who are true historians of the association will bring up Moses Malone. I have that conversation with my dad. He'll bring up Moses Malone. Like, those are the kind of people that bring him up. Hakeem Olajuwon, absolutely criminally underrated, underappreciated, undercelebrated, underacknowledged, underconversated. Nobody talks about Hakeem. And this guy had one of the most elite peaks that the NBA has ever seen. This guy was winning DPOYs, league MVPs, championships, finals MVPs. Like, if you're into awards, he's got those. This guy, I remember watching him block like 8 shots on one play, covering and spanning the entire paint, both sides. Boom, boom. Rebounds. He had Shaq in a blender for 4 games in the NBA Finals. Swept his ass. Sent his ass home. After dismantling the Spurs, David Robinson, who was league MVP, putting everybody to shame. Nobody talks about Hakeem. They want to talk about Shaq. And Hakeem swept Shaq. They want to talk about Shaq, how dominant he was, but Hakeem swept his ass. Make it make sense. They want to talk about the most dominant players, not bringing up Hakeem. David Robinson was an MVP. dogged him, dog walked him. Like the moment Hakeem got a couple of nice players to help fill the roster, dude started producing chips. Unbelievable. Go look at the supporting cast. They were average to good players. If you put in the context, Hakeem's rings are amazing. Wilt Chamberlain. I don't care what anybody says. Has to be, must be the most impressive athlete that ever played in the NBA. Just go back and watch the film that we have of Wilt Chamberlain. The physical strength, the size and speed combo. Like everybody's like, oh man, Giannis, this is crazy. We had that. That was kind of like what Wilt was. Oh man, LeBron, man, he's this amazing. Yeah, he is a great athlete. Did you watch footage of Wilt Chamberlain? People don't know how strong Wilt Chamberlain was. Some people say that Wilt was stronger than Shaq because Wilt actually applied himself to his physical strength. Wilt Chamberlain used to actually competitively lift weights with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Andre the Giant. People don't know that. They don't want to read. They don't want to study. They don't want to do the homework. They don't want the research. Dr. J. Only the true basketball historians give Dr. J his due. A complete player. The diehards properly rank him. They put him up there as one of the greats. I just had to do this, man. And you know what? This is the perfect time because obviously you guys are, I think, hip and in tune to a lot of the things we've been discussing and who we've been discussing. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Go ahead and tap in. Let me know who you guys have as an underappreciated, underrated, underacknowledged, overlooked player that was great. It could be current. It could be previous. Give me your reasons. Tell me why you think they're either underappreciated, underranked, overlooked, whatever the case may be. And tell me which one of the things are they? Because sometimes a player's underrated. Sometimes they're just under discussed, right? When they discuss certain positions, when they discuss certain eras. Like, for example, I gave you guys some of mine. One of the things I mentioned was Mark Price. A basketball diehard knows who Mark Price is. But he's always overlooked for that era because Jordan was winning all these championships. You see what I'm saying? So, and then when we discuss the great point guards, everybody wants to start with Magic. And then they go to guys like Steph, or some people put Steph, but then they forget about the tiers, right? So like John Stockton, Zeke, Mark Price, there's a lot of guys we can include in the conversation. They don't have to be better than the top guys, but like not everybody can be the best. They could be one of the best, right? So Brad Daugherty, I agree. But like I remember he had injuries too. I think his was a back injury. I think he had back injury. And those are the things like those are the wild cards of the NBA. Would have been, could have been. Like what was Greg Oden destined to be? Greg Oden was drafted ahead of Kevin Durant. Look what Kevin Durant became. A dominant all-time leading scorer, multiple time champion, league MVP, all those things. And then Greg Oden was basically out of the league before he turned like 30, right? And they were hanging on, trying to get him to get healthy. I think he had degenerative knee issues. Brandon Roy, another one of those things, right? Who had bad knees. Dwayne Wade. We could have gotten a few more peak years out of Dwayne Wade. I don't like what Dwayne Wade became. I blame him for some of that LeBron stacking the deck stuff in Miami. I blame Dwayne Wade actually a lot. But actually as a player, I think, Dwayne Wade's peak, I mean, it was good. It was just short, but definitely deserving of that conversation as well. Cavs got Daugherty, Ron Harper, Mark Price. I think Wayne Embry was the GM at the time. Yeah, he definitely hit on that. And then they moved on from Ron Harper because they said like he hung around a bad group of people. They didn't like his friends or something. They thought maybe he was, smoking some, whatever, and hanging out with the homies or whatever. And like, they didn't like that. Like, what a thing. You're going to get rid of a guy who's an all-star caliber talent, goes on to become a multiple-time champion. He was good enough for the Bulls, but not good enough for the Cavs. Danny Manning, another underrated player, right? Overlooked. Really nice. Good player. Yeah, so if you guys want it, the link is there in the chat. You guys can let me know who you believe is a qualified, underrated player, underappreciated player, underdiscussed, undercelebrated, whatever. You tell me what they are, and then celebrate them. Take this opportunity to do that. Tell me why they're, better than how people view them. Oh, okay, Nick, I see you with Mark Aguirre. Absolutely. Yeah, there were some players from that era that get overlooked quite a bit. Mark Aguirre was one of them. Dennis Johnson never gets discussed. Man, that dude was phenomenal. He was great for the Celtics. I mentioned Moses Malone. Trying to think of like criminally underrated. Bob McAdoo. Again, only the basketball historians will know a guy like Bob McAdoo. Elgin Baylor. Only the historians will know. All right, so Mike, I want to. Bob Lanier's a good one. Woodage. Let me say a little something about Derek Fisher. For anybody who watched the Lakers in the years they went to the finals, because remember, he was there like that whole time. They have a lot of appreciation for Derek Fisher and what he brought to the table. Would you say he's underappreciated, undercelebrated, or underrated? Because I'm trying to see where you put him. Right, some of the names I'm seeing, it kind of makes sense, right? Terry Cummings was nice. Ooh, Cliff Hogan, Hagan, that's kind of an abstract name. I don't know much about that player. Wow, let's see who that is. It's not often somebody says a name I don't know. All right, so Cliff Hagan. I've never heard of this guy. Is this a serious one? American former basketball player. He was a 6'4" forward who excelled with the hook shot. Hagan, nicknamed, is it Labner? Played his entire 10-year career with the St. Louis Hawks. So he must have been with like the Bob Pettit's Hawks or whatever, I think. Yeah, okay. Hagan is a 5-time NBA All-Star, an ABA All-Star, NCAA basketball champion, 1951, Kentucky Wildcats. Okay, so I mean, he's accomplished, right? Oh, okay, gotcha. Man, all right. So check this out, Nick. Stacey Ogben was very, very cool as a player. I'm trying to remember if he was listed as a shooting guard or a small forward. But I remember him kind of being like the Lamar Odom archetype, right? Kind of wispy, kind of lean, kind of had that range, was nice with the pill, could score a little bit, could defend. I remember he played for the Hawks. Stacey Ogman, I do, man. I think they called him Plastic. That was his nickname. Plastic. What up, J. Cool? Just tuned in. Great stream so far. I'm no historian. Didn't get a chance to see him play, but I think Sidney Moncrief, absolutely. Sidney Moncrief, for sure. Great 4 to 5 year peak. And you know what's crazy, J. Cool, about 4 to 5 year peaks? If you have a 4 or 5 year peak, there's like 50 other guys with really, really good 4 or 5 year peaks. So you really got to distinguish yourself within those 4 to 5 years. So that's where you need like the MVPs, you need the scoring titles, the DPOYs, league leader in steals, assists, points, whatever. And you also, because you need to be recognized, the team needs to win championships. Dave Cowens was a great player too. Absolutely. Man, Sean Elliott was nice. Sean Elliott, I remember, played for the Spurs. He may have gotten a ring at the end. I think he did. I think he was a part of that championship with like Avery Johnson, David Robinson, Tim Duncan's early years. I think Sean Elliott was on there. He was nice. Nice shooting guard, good scorer. Did Sean, I wonder if Sean definitely made all-star games. Sean Elliott. Yeah, he was a really nice player. Okay, what do we know about Sean Elliott? Drafted by, what is it, the Spurs, then went to the Pistons, and then went back to the Spurs. And that's crazy. I forgot he went to the Pistons. I totally forgot about that. John Sally used to actually play before he went to tennis. I remember John Sally, absolutely. Now all he does is talk about the Bulls back in the day and all that. Yeah, Sean Elliott was nice, man. Sean Elliott actually played through 2000, 2001. I don't think he was doing much, but yeah, did a nice long career. Let's see here. I'm just curious to see what his best years were. Sean Elliott, 742 career games, a 14-point average. He made 80% free throws. He shot 47% field goal, 38% from three. Yeah, he was a nice player. Yep, he was a nice player. He had basically, it looks like an 11 or 12-year season. His peak was he was an all-star in 92, 93, and he was an all-star in 95, 96. So he was a two-time all-star. Yep. He did average 20 points a game one time. He did make the all-star team that year. Yeah, he was a nice player. Danny Ainge was nice. Danny was a fighter. I remember Danny Ainge, man. So you guys will remember him as a Celtic, but I remember him as a Phoenix Sun too. Like when I was a young kid, he was a Celtic. And then the Celtics, Larry got old and his back was busted. But Danny Ainge, I think, yeah, he played for the Suns. He was a part of that run with Dan Marley and those guys. Was it the Jazz? No, it was a different guy for the Jazz. It was, what's his name? Jeff Hornacek. Another nice player. Jeff Hornacek was nice, man. Boy, it was good. Tom Chambers, everybody's just going to know him for that dunk, man. When he jumped over whoever the hell he jumped over. I forget who it was. Elliott was traded for Rodman, then came back to the Spurs a few years later, played with Rodman. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Yeah, that's cool, man. Nice footage. Absolutely. All right. Good stuff. Let's go ahead and do this. It was the Blazers and the Suns. Yeah, Woodage. Yeah. All right. Man, you guys are hip, man. I love it, man. All right. So this next one, maybe it could stoke the flames a little bit. I don't know. Maybe Drazen Petrovic was really good. Woodage, absolutely. I want to talk about the greats of all time. The conversations that people like to have about top 5, top 10, the greatest, the GOATs, whatever. And such a large majority of folks have Michael Jordan as their greatest player of all time, right? What I want to do is I just want to ask you and reflect on this. Why do you choose him as the greatest player of all time? I just want you to think about your criteria. If you write down what makes Michael Jordan your personal decision greatest player of all time, your GOAT. If Jordan is your GOAT, I want you to write down why it is. And then I want you to go and look for players who are probably in that same conversation of all-time greats. Top 5, top 10, whoever's in your top 10, top 15 players. What you're going to see is that those players possess the same traits, qualities, characteristics, awards, achievements that he did. And I think some other players deserve your considerations. I don't want the media controlling how I think. I don't want the media controlling telling me who is the GOAT. I don't like it when people try to tell me and force feed me that LeBron's the GOAT. I don't like it when people try to force feed me and tell me that Jordan's the GOAT. I don't want to be told who's the GOAT. And it's because of that I often don't engage in GOAT conversations. We can have conversations about great players and what makes them great. I can tell you who my favorite players are. But to sit there and nitpick and argue and debate about these small nuances and then people picking a side and just arguing unproductively. Nah, man, it can't be him because this, and this. And they start shitting on players and putting down players and saying they weren't that great. And, oh, he choked and did this. And they're missing the point. My point is, take the players who have similar achievements and look how close they are to each other and see how difficult it is. So let me give you an example, right? People tell me that Michael Jordan is the GOAT, right? And then they name reasons, which is fine. Give me your reasons, right? I want to hear what you have to say. They say things like he won the MVP, the league MVP, 5 times. And I'm like, okay, that's good, right? League MVP is a huge award. It's one of the most amazing achievements you can get. But then Steve Nash gets 2 MVPs, and I'm like, well, hold on a second. Steve Nash has 2 MVPs in an NBA that had Shaq, in an NBA that had Kobe, in an NBA that had Tim Duncan. And it's like, what? Because it's kind of media driven, right? So there's that thing that we have to tackle, right? That's something we got to think about. Then I have to think about the fact that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had 6 MVPs. 1971, 72, so he won 2 in a row. Then he went from 74, 76, and 77, so he won 2 in a row twice, right? And then he won one again in 1980. So he has MVPs across 2 decades. Jordan kind of did the same thing. He has MVPs in 88, 91, 92, so he won it 2 years in a row. So he won it 2 years in a row one time. So one could argue when it comes to the MVP award, there was nobody more dominant with the MVP award than Kareem. And I'm pretty sure if they were doing it at the time, I think Bill Russell would be in that conversation too. Right? Because Bill won 5, right? Yeah, it was NBA. It wasn't ABA. It was NBA. He had 5. He won it in 58, 61, 62, 63. He had 3 in a row, right? And then he skipped 64, and then he won it in 65. LeBron, I think, won 2 in a row twice, right? So he was very dominant. He got 4. Wilt Chamberlain won it 3 years in a row from 66 to 68. He also had one in 1960. Joker has been dominant. He's got 3. He could have had 4. He could have won it this year, right? And then he would be in that elite group, and he could win next year. Who knows? Magic had 3. I think he won 2 in a row, 89 and 90. Larry Bird had 3. He did 3 in a row, right? So that's pretty damn dominant. I'm just saying, if I'm looking at the MVP award, if I look at the nuance, if I look at the details, if I look at the minute things, the minutia, right? There's guys in this conversation, if it's about the MVP award, that are as good or better than MJ. If we're just talking MVP award, right? Because people tell me MVPs, right? Okay, let's move on. Scoring titles. People tell me that Jordan won a lot of scoring titles. Yeah, he won 10. Nobody has more scoring titles than MJ. And actually, it's not even close. He has 3 more. 3 more than number 2. Wilt Chamberlain had 7. So hell yeah. Jordan was an offensive beast, right? A great scorer. And then when you watch this film, and I got to watch him play live, and he was destroying my team, and I mean, it was pretty damn amazing. He hit some shots where I'm just like, how the hell did that go in? He hit some shots over some great defenses. Every time he shot, I swear, I thought it was going in. That's what it felt like. It literally feels like, as I watched his career, he only had a couple of bad games. That literally what it felt like as I was watching this guy play. So I'm like, mentally, I'm thinking, okay, this guy had like the perfect career, right? But check out Wilt's scoring runs, right? This guy had 7 scoring titles. In his rookie season, he had a scoring title. Think about that. Rookie of the year, MVP, and a scoring title in his first NBA season. See, this is why you can't sleep on Wilt Chamberlain. Rookie of the year, league MVP, scoring title. Right? He had a season where he averaged 50 points a game. Right? So if we're going to have conversations about great scoring, Like, how do we not mention Wilt Chamberlain? So people tell me that Jordan's the greatest scorer, but like Wilt Chamberlain was a thing, right? Kevin Durant's got 4 scoring titles. George Gervin has 4 scoring titles. And then you get into a long list of guys that have like 3 or 2, right? So Adrian Dantley, Bob Pettit, we talked about those guys. Steph has 2 scoring titles. You guys know Joel Embiid has 2 scoring titles? Like, what would his career be if he would have stayed healthy? You know, MVP and stuff like that. Like, dude, it's crazy. Russell Westbrook had 2 scoring titles. Shaq had a couple. Kareem had a couple. I'm surprised that Kareem only had 2 scoring titles. But remember, did a little bit of overlapping with Wilt, right? Bob McAdoo had 3. Neil Johnston, who seems like an abstract. George Mikan, the great. James Harden, remember in his peak, he was just getting those buckets. You know. Arioka says Michael Jordan is the most overrated NBA player of all time. I don't know if that's true. Do some people overrate him? That's probably true. Is it overrated to say that people have him as the GOAT? You know, like, dude accomplished a lot of great things. So I get the conversation. Like, having it is legitimate. But I do think there was a media machine pushing him as the GOAT. Because prior to him, it was, you know, Kareem. And there's a lot of achievements. You know, Kareem with like the 4 years in college. You know, the complete dominance through his entire career from like high school, never losing a game, college. I think he won, 3 or 4 national titles, was probably National Player of the Year every year or something. Like, we can go back and look at all that. Like, he was dominant, you know. But yeah, I do think some of that media stuff, and it's the same thing I feel like LeBron and his people are doing now. The same thing that the league was doing with MJ back in the day. You know, yeah. So you know, look at the names that are on this list: multiple time scoring champions. Let's continue. Playoff games, playoff risers. On the screen, you guys see players that kicked up their performances in the most crucial moments. Go back and watch Tim Duncan in finals and Western Conference finals, big playoff games. Jordan was a riser. Larry Bird was killing everybody. Magic was amazing. Right out of college. Dude was like championship, you know. LeBron, huge playoff games, huge finals games. You know, Eastern Conference finals. I mean, he started off with a bang, you know, in 07 in that series, the Eastern Conference finals against the Pistons in that game 5. You know, the big shot in Orlando to win in game 2. Obviously, they didn't go anywhere. The Magic ended up going to the finals. The Miami Heat years were great for him. The finals in 2016, he was otherworldly, right? Him and Kyrie, unstoppable, you know. Mentioning Tim Duncan. God, man, Tim Duncan. So overlooked. I got him in my top 10. I don't know if everybody else does. Some people don't do top lists. I do. Because I like the discussions, you know, like, but I don't argue with people about where guys go, right? If you got somebody at 8 and I got him at 6, like, really, is that something worth fighting over? You know, Tim Duncan perennially in the playoffs, always in the playoffs, always in the thick of things. Finals runs. LeBron, same thing. Kareem, same thing. Kobe, come on, man. You got Kobe. He was always in the playoffs, always in the mix. You know, runs to the finals. What do you go to 6 finals? Shaq, you know, Scotty and MJ and those guys, you know, always in the finals. Karl Malone, John Stockton, you know, they deserve considerations, like playing tons of playoff games. Yeah. And big playoff moments, right? Let's discuss steals. Let's talk defense, right? John Stockton. People don't like to talk about him as an all-time great point guard. They forget. They want to talk about Steph. Where's Steph's defense? We're gonna talk about his defensive inefficiencies or deficiencies, I should say. J. Kidd was an amazing player, right? Not in the GOAT conversations, but just talking about defense, right? Now, if we look at the all-time greats, you notice that they also had great defensive, runs throughout the career. So like Tim Duncan, all NBA defense, 15 times. 15. The closest person is 12. That's Kobe. Kevin Garnett, 12. And not only 15 total, but 8 first team. Kobe had 9 first team. Kevin Garnett had 9 first team. It is crazy. Kareem, 11 all NBA defense. 5 first team, 6 second team. I don't see MJ in that conversation. You got to go all the way down to 9 all NBA. And you know what? Maybe if he didn't retire, he gets a couple more of those all NBA defenses, maybe. But he didn't get those. I just want you guys to see my position. We're just putting MJ into this GOAT conversation, right? We're saying MJ is my GOAT. But like, depending on what you're prioritizing as your measures of greatness, there's other guys who did the same things. And they are also the total package. They had the full offensive skill set. They had the full defensive skill set. And they were great teammates too. And they had leadership. What's the conversation about? Okay, so let's do that. Let's do Defensive Player of the Year. Who has won the most DPOYs? It's not going to be a bunch of guys on this list, obviously. But let's take a look. Rudy Gobert's got 4. Ben Wallace has 4. Dikembe Mutombo has 4. Dwight Howard has 3. I would say that the best overall players with multiple DPOYs is probably Hakeem Olajuwon. But like, he's not in this elite list of guys that we're putting like Michael and all that. I think the unique thing about Michael was, didn't he win MVP and DPOY in the same season? And maybe a scoring title too, something like that. So that was kind of like, obviously, one of the best seasons individually that anybody's ever had. I don't think they won a championship. I don't even think they were close to a championship the year he did that. I think they got bounced at the first or second round. And like, that's the kind of thing that like, that's like unique. And I was talking about Hakeem and how Hakeem has like, he had an NBA Finals MVP, a championship, league MVP, and then DPOY all in the same season. I thought that was one of the best seasons ever, right? So like, I would say that Jordan's season in 88 was great, but like, he didn't have the team success. I think they were bounced either by the Pistons. I think it was the Pistons, or was it was that the Pistons or the Celtics in 88? Let's see here. 1988 NBA season. Sometimes these years just blend in too much. All right, so the Lakers were the champions. Okay, so yeah, Michael was the MVP. Mark Jackson was Rookie of the Year. Jordan led the league in scoring with 35. Michael Jordan was the win share leader. Let's see here. Yeah, I think the finals were Lakers and Pistons. And that was the year the Lakers beat the Pistons. And then the following year, I think the Pistons won. And I think they won 2. Yeah, the Celtics were basically done at that point. Yeah. Larry wasn't Larry anymore, and it just wasn't the same. Yep. So I'm not trying to change your mind. I am not trying to change your mind. I'm not telling you to come up out of your decision to make Jordan your GOAT. I'm just saying, when you think about the reasons why he's your GOAT, think about what makes him that. Like, if you're going to list the league MVPs, there's a guy with more. If you're going to pick because of the championships, there's a guy with more. If you're going to pick, defensive All NBA, there's a guy with more. He does have extreme dominance in scoring, right? He's got the 10 scoring titles. Closest is Wilt Chamberlain at 7. But like, if it's really about the awards, if it's really about those achievements, then there's other guys that need to be considered in there. You know what I mean? And Tim Duncan doesn't have a scoring title, but like a bona fide champion, true to the DNA, the heart, right? Defensively, extremely dominant, very, very potent offensive player, a selfless player, a player with respect, a player with achievements, a player with all those things, right? I'm going to drop the link. And for those of you that want to tap in and let me know who's your GOAT and why, how do you pick your GOAT? What's the criteria? How do you distinguish them between each other? The guys on the screen. I mean, come on, man. We're talking about the top players to ever step foot in the league. We're talking about guys with multiple championships because of them, right? Like they were a huge part of it. We're talking about league MVPs all over the place. We're talking about all NBA defense. We're talking about some of the highest basketball IQs you'd ever see. I mean, it's harder to pick a GOAT than I think people are giving credit to. It's not easy to pick. People just pick one, but man, it should be like the hardest decision you ever make. And depending on your mood that day, you might move it. You might be like, oh, I'm going to go with this because, this is important or something. Like it happens. You know what I mean? I dropped the StreamYard link for you guys to tap in and let me know what you think. And, if Jordan's your GOAT, have you thought about some of my points? Again, I'm not trying to get you to change your mind. If he's your GOAT, cool. But did you ever think about why he's your GOAT and not just let someone tell you that he is? See, because if I'm just going to go off of what people tell me, then for a long time, Jordan was my GOAT. But before that, Kareem was my GOAT. And before that, Wilt was my GOAT. And before that, Pettit was my GOAT. And then now LeBron's my GOAT. Or Kobe was my GOAT after MJ, or maybe it was Shaq or whatever. Like, it's just going to change all the time, and then you kind of lose the ingenuous nature of who and why you're picking that. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of quickly discuss that. All right, let's do this. You guys can obviously chime in whenever you want. I do want to kind of get to this idea too here. Oh, my God. Okay, Kevin Durant. We have a problem. We got a couple of problems. So the first problem is this. You have players getting in front of microphones and just saying anything. You got players saying a whole bunch of stuff. Everybody trying to have hot takes and they're trying to say all types of stuff. Make buzz, go viral, all these other things. We have the modern NBA players putting down the legends of the game, disrespecting them. They don't have to, but they have decided to do this. I've never liked this. I also don't like it when the old players shit on the new players. I don't like it when Shaq talks down to the new players. I don't like it when Barkley does it. Look, there's always going to be critics, and there's always going to be people that say things you don't like. And that's just something that comes with the territory. You're an NBA player, there's going to be critics. Nobody is critical of the 11th guy at the end of the Pistons bench. They're going to be critical of the best players, right? They're the ones that we're watching, and they're the ones that matter and all that stuff, right? But what we're kind of noticing is it's starting to feel like it's a tit for tat. Old players dogging the young players. Oh, man, we played defense. The era was tougher. It was more physical. These guys are soft. You think the modern NBA players like hearing that they're soft? Pause. Like, you think that's what they want to hear? Or they want to hear things like, oh, they ain't, they ain't trying to drive the bus. They're bus riders. Like, you think they're trying to hear that stuff? These guys that are playing now are trying their best to win championships, achieve the most that they can in this short window of their careers, and be the best that they could be, like the Army, whatever. But they got people critiquing them. And some guys deal with the critics better than others. Kevin Durant's not one of those guys that deals with critics well. Kevin Durant has been questioned on multiple occasions about his soft skin nature. And it's true. Stuff really does impact him, making burner accounts and all that stuff. The one thing that I want to see, and it may be too late because it's not in his nature. Man, Kevin Durant never really embraced the villain role. He really didn't. He always wanted to be liked. He just wanted to hoop. People question his leadership. Where he goes, he tries, obviously to be with other really good hoopers, and he wants beautiful basketball. And I get it, man, all this stuff. The thing is this dude shit on MJ. And MJ's got a cult following and fans that are fanatics. He didn't expect blowback. Like Kwame Brown went all the way in on this guy for this. I did too. And now he's apologizing and saying he was wrong and it's his bad, and he apologizes to MJ. And MJ will never say anything about this. He doesn't. He never responds to this stuff. He respects his own privacy, and that's what he wants and all that. But here's the thing about KD. You don't even stand on business, bro. You want to talk shit about the legends and say, this guy played baseball. Well, now you're backing up. Now you're reversing course. You're going to throw a rock and hide your hand. So who are you? This has been his problem his whole career. He's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? Does he want to be the villain or does he want to be the superhero? It's like an identity crisis. That's KD in a nutshell, man. It's like, oh, he wants smoke, but then he doesn't want smoke. Come on, bro. I mean, you're giving people ammunition to critique you even more. I, for one, believe that whoever you are, make sure it's genuine, whether it's good, bad, indifferent, whatever. KD's looking foolish right now, and he's one of the greatest players to ever play the game. You got people saying he's the best offensive player we've ever had in the NBA. But he can't get out of his own way saying stupid things and making people resent him. And we saw the pushback when he left OKC and went to the Golden State Warriors. And he was never comfortable with that. But the truth is if he never went there, who knows if he wins a title. He goes to Brooklyn, it doesn't work. He goes to Phoenix, it absolutely does not work. It's blown up, it's over. Yeah, I noticed that, but is Durant better offensively than Bird? I don't know, man. It's close, I guess. Oh, why did this? Woodage, I'm going to add you as a standard moderator for some reason. It tried to hide your message. I don't want it to hide your message. All right, there we go. All right, Woodage, appreciate you, man. I'm going to make you a moderator. I don't know. For some reason, it tried to hide your message. Can I? Yeah, it won't let me. Can I pin the message? What does that do? Message pinned. I don't know. Yeah, I appreciate you at Blue Wrench now. Yeah, as I was saying, the KD situation's kind of messed up, man. I kind of just wish he would be whatever he is, stick with it, go that route, and just follow through. But that's always kind of been who he is, man. Remember when people were calling him Cupcake and all that? I mean, they were throwing all types of mud his way. But he got a lot of criticism in his career, and he is a great player, and he's worth celebrating for that reason. But it's the other stuff, and this is why people say things about the modern NBA and it being like a soft league and soft players and all that. It's because of stuff like this. And I'm not a believer in that. I just think everybody's got a different personality. And with social media and all that pressure, some people just don't deal with it well. Yeah, I'm telling you, bro. It's the pressures and stuff like that. All right, cool. Appreciate you guys for stopping by tonight. Man, it was a good show. We talked about a lot of great things. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, let me know. Drop me some comments. For those that are watching this on replay, please do like this video on your way out. Don't forget to do that. Engage with the content that helps out the channel. Share it with your friends, family, anybody you know who likes, hoops talks and podcasts and stuff like that. We are an interactive and engaging YouTube channel. We like to hear what you guys have to say. And we're investing our time and efforts into these streams and into these things and into you guys. I love going on to other live streams and discussing hoops, so I know I'm not special. Other people probably like to do those same things too. So I always throw out the link and try to get you guys engaged with the content. But I appreciate you, Jay. I appreciate you, Woodage. Did I miss anybody? Arioka, appreciate you for coming through tonight. Micah was here earlier. I'm not sure if he's still here. Nick, thank you for coming through. Hope you guys liked the video. Enjoyed the live stream. Man, I really hope I didn't miss anybody else, man. Did I miss any? Bruiser Sue was here earlier. Salute to you, sir. I think that's everybody that was here in the live stream. Anyways, hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend. Starts today. Hope you have a good Saturday and Sunday. We'll be discussing some things over on the Format Podcast on Sunday. So if you're not subscribed to the Format Podcast, go ahead and put in that search, subscribe. I'll be there with Transformer to kind of talk hoops and stuff like that and other topics. But thank you guys. Appreciate you. You guys take it easy. We'll see you guys soon on the next stream.